Hey everybody, it's Brian Lee with Relevant Content, and I took these really cool time-lapse videos of the Milky Way over Iron Horse Trail Park in Nebraska, and I wanted to show you all how I did it, as well as taking a few deep sky photos as well. I really like the way these turned out. Transitions from day to night. It's a 6-hour time-lapse with 970 photos. I took it with my A7S III camera, and I had my backup ZV-E10 to mess around a little bit too, and I got some cool stuff with that. Iron Horse Trail Park is about an hour and a half south of Omaha. It is an 85-acre park that was opened in 1985 by the Nemaha Natural Resources District. I left Saturday in the evening, got there about 2 hours before sunset, set up camp. There's a small camping area that's first come, first serve. It had about 10 camp spots. I was there with 2 other campers, and so it was fairly peaceful. It's just south of Pawnee City, Nebraska. Fun fact about Pawnee City is there's a golf course there that has sand greens. I've played it there before. It's on the honor system. You just put $5 in a drop box and away you go. It's 9 holes, and one of the holes is a par 3, 135 yards that you have to hit over a barn. So when I got there, I set up my camp, just a small tent, lights set up. Wasn't going to sleep very long because once I got those photos taken, I wanted to see what they look like. So I actually stayed up to about 6 in the morning looking at all the photos. Right when I got there, I took the drone out for a spin, the DJI Air 3S. This is where the campsite area was. So I was able to set the cameras up on this little point here, which gave me a nice view of the southern sky, which is where the Milky Way comes up, so that I could see a lot of lake in between it to get the reflections. Really lucked out with that location. It was just a short walk from the tent, and I was out there from 7:15 p.m. until 1:15 a.m. And I had the whole lake to myself, which I thought it was going to be a peaceful night. And right at sunset, a whole group of fishermen showed up for a fishing competition, which at first thought was going to ruin my shoot, but it actually added some interesting aspects to the video, a little bit of activity. And even though they shined their lights right in my lens a couple times, it turned out all right. Also got a few deep sky images, kind of like this one right here, of the Milky Way galaxy and some stars. And kind of want to go through how I did all that. For the equipment setup, I had 2 main cameras. My A camera was an A7S III. That's the one that I did the 6-hour time-lapse video of the Milky Way. The other camera was a Sony ZV-E10 that I just kind of messed around with. I took some shots just straight above, looking for shooting stars. I did a little 1-hour time lapse of the northern sky, the lower half of the Big Dipper. Just caught a ton of satellites and shooting stars shooting through there, plus some really cool effects with the fishermen racing around. So I did a lot of research before this trip, learning how to do these time lapses. And when you do a day to night time lapse into the Milky Way, they call that the Holy Grail time lapse. A shout out to Nate in the Wild's YouTube channel that helped me guide me through this process. It's really kind of a tricky process because number one, you can't touch the camera for 6 hours. And number two, as the light starts to diminish, you have to slowly adjust the exposure settings carefully without bumping the camera to get it just right, watching the meter. And I started off at a really high shutter speed. I think it was like 1/800. And by the end of the night, we were doing 20-second exposures every 22 seconds. So at the end of the night, there was a 2-second gap between exposures. And those 20-second exposures is why you can see, when a satellite goes by, you'll see a streak. When a falling star comes down, it streaks. That's what creates all those effects. This was done in the A7S III settings under the intermittent shooting mode. I had 970 shots total. One of the things I learned that on the A7S III, the meter's just a little bit slow to respond. And so even though I didn't have a whole lot of time between shots, as I adjusted the shutter speed, sometimes it wouldn't change. And so I overreacted a few times. And that produced a few overexposed shots, a couple underexposed shots. But once I got the hang of it and settled into it, it was pretty smooth sailing from there. And at the end of the day, in post-production, I was able to bring most of those shots back to normal. There's a few in there that are a little bit off, but I won't tell you which ones. One helpful thing I used was my Creator Cloud app on my iPhone. That way I could actually see a preview of each shot. That especially helped once I got all the way down to the 20-second exposures and had to start adjusting ISO because the ISO adjustments seem to jump a lot more than the shutter adjustments. And so once the meter got below negative 2.0, which is what happens in the dark. You kind of have to make a judgment call based on what you see on your iPhone. So that really helped guide me through all the way down into the darkest part of the sky, which is right here. You can see in the Milky Way kind of came out really good. Once we got all the way down, we were at 3200 ISO, 20-second exposures, and the aperture was all the way open at 2.8. I was using a 17 millimeter wide angle lens by Tamron. Had that thing all the way opened up, so I got a good portion of the night sky. Had my frame in 4:3 so that I could do cropping and post-production. This is looking straight south, deep into the Milky Way galaxy. The constellation Sagittarius is right here. Sagittarius is actually my birth sign. Sagittarius is a really cool constellation because it's right over the center of the Milky Way galaxy. There's some really cool nebula that are just off to the top. So the Milky Way is the galaxy that we live in. The Earth and the Sun rotate around it. It's about 100,000 light years across, and when you're looking at Sagittarius, you're looking right close to the center of the core of the galaxy. And in the center of the Milky Way galaxy is a ginormous black hole. That black hole is called Sagittarius A, and it weighs 4 million times the mass of the Sun. And we are all orbiting around that huge black hole. This is a representation of the Milky Way galaxy right here that is at, it's called 100,000 stars. It's stars.chromeexperiments.com. And this is the Milky Way galaxy, 100,000 light years across. And to give you a little bit of perspective, we zoom in to where the Sun and the Earth are. We can only see about 100,000 stars around us. All these other stars out here are just guesses. We haven't really been able to see them. But once we get into this ball here, these are the stars that we can see around our little neighborhood. And you still have to zoom in even further. These are our local little star cluster with stars around us. And we're still trying to get into our solar system. This is actually 1 light year in the Oort cloud around the Sun. And as we get closer, we're still not into the solar system. Keep going, and here it comes. So these are the outer planets, Neptune, Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, and then here's the inner planets, kind of where we live in our neighborhood with the Earth right there. So what I was doing is, we're sitting here on Earth. This is what the Milky Way galaxy looks like for us. So it's off there in the distance. And that gives you kind of a perspective on what we were looking at. All right, so once the sky got really dark, I didn't have to adjust the camera anymore. I started messing around with the secondary camera, the Sony ZV-E10, and I got this time lapse behind me. It's a 1-hour time lapse of the northern sky. You can see just the bottom half of the Big Dipper kind of over in there. Just look at all of the different satellites streaking through there, planes, falling stars. It was just crazy. There was actually 3 meteor showers going on that night too, so I caught a lot of those. That fishing competition was going on. You can see the strobe lights of the fishermen, which really created a really neat effect on the island right there. This was done with 20-second exposures, just like the other one, and shot every 22 seconds, just like the Milky Way shot, and it lasted about an hour. So this is an image I took of Sagittarius. This is about 100 photos that I stacked in a software program called Cyril. Shout out to Deep Space Astro and Abdur Astro on YouTube that helped me figure out how to use Cyril. It's a little bit technically tricky at first, but watch enough YouTube and I figured it out. Let me know if you want to know more about that. You can see Sagittarius right here. This is the handle. This is the top, and then the spout's kind of over here. And then up here is what's called the Lagoon Nebula and the Trifid Nebula, which are some really popular nebulas to shoot. So I thought this photo was really cool, how it came out. And this was actually shot with the ZV-E10, which is not quite as good in low light conditions, but in post-processing, I was able to kind of take out some of the noise and clean it up a little bit, but I think it looks really great. So this is actually what the unprocessed image looks like. You can see right here is Sagittarius, the spout, the top, and the handle. And as you can tell, it's looks way different than it does when you stack those images together. I mean, I could come in here and, mess with some of the exposure settings and see, as you can tell, you can kind of get some of it out like this. But, that stacking software really pulls a lot of this stuff out, which is really cool. You can see all the noise in there too that we had to get out. This was a 1.5 second exposure, I had to do about 100 of those to stack that image to get it the way it needs to look. This is the shot I took just kind of looking straight up the Milky Way galaxy. If I kind of flip through some of these pictures, you can see the different satellites and stuff streaking across. You can see where I bumped the camera a few times. And this one's just a slightly different angle. Same thing, you can see those meteors shooting across, etc. You can see where I bumped the camera. For the post-processing of the time-lapse videos, the day to night, I used a program called LR Timelapse in conjunction with Lightroom Classic. This is not a sponsored video, but shout out to Nate in the Wild for convincing me to buy it. But it's a really cool program, and what it basically does is it evens out all of the different exposure settings and all of your different edits in Lightroom Classic to make a nice smooth transition so you don't see any flickers or jumps in the frames. It takes a little bit, it takes about an hour or two to get through the process, but really cool results in the end. If you'd like to know more about that, let me know. So thanks everyone for geeking out with me in the stars. If you're interested to learn more about this, let me know. If you'd like some time-lapse videos done for your business or your property, you can reach out to us at Relevant Content Studio, and you can find us at relevantcontent.studio. See you next time.